Prayer is experienced in many ways, and a few minutes in a video will not encompass an area one learns about their entire spiritual life. Sometimes acronyms like ACTS are used to help us remember the different parts of prayer like adoration, confession, thanksgiving, and supplication. We could add intercession as well. These are helpful, and I have used these as a reminder to myself in prayer. But I want to focus on the nature of what prayer is, communicating with God. All communication involves speaking and listening. It flows both ways. Of course, in the case of God, we should really be listening more than asking and telling. Yet, our human nature compels us to speak like a little child, not allowing their parents to get a word in because they have to finish their story. God is patient and willing to listen, for there is no limit of time and space in God's nature. This episode will focus on the listening aspect of prayer. It is a state of reception and humility, often involving silence on our part, to hear what God is saying. This attitude is not limited to the actual time you devote to prayer. It is part of what Paul calls praying without ceasing. We are ready to listen at any point in our day when God speaks. It is our constant attitude of yielding in prayer. We begin to realize that God not only impresses through the still small voice, but through peace, the words of others, circumstances, and of course, the scriptures. Every discipline is entwined with others, and meditating on the Word of God, like I spoke of in episode 2, draws you into prayer in a natural way. It's like the Spirit of God will highlight a truth and reveal how to apply it to our situation. Listening leads to patience in us to not jump to conclusions and take the first thought we have. Impulsivity is not a characteristic of God's leading. Listening requires the attitude of desiring to obey where God leads. To hear is not just to recognize what was said, but to follow the clear leading of the Spirit and recognize the need to act on the truth. This is where the discipline part of prayer is quite evident. Wait on the Lord means to make space, purposely, to not be distracted, and even make physical time to just quiet your thoughts. This can become quite painful for us mentally because our culture does not like to wait on anything, even food. This is part of dying to self and being aware that time with God is not wasted, but necessary for life. God is very original, and His prompting may be the still small voice or come through a memory from the past, even an emotion to intercede for another. We don't dictate how God speaks, but we must have the humility to listen and obey when He does. Listening is a critical awareness of our deep need to be in God's presence. It is what changes our character because prayer changes us and we are not focused on receiving benefits from God. Be encouraged because God is the only one you can communicate to fully. What I mean is that other beings don't always know what you mean to say with human words and emotions, but God does. He knows the needs below the surface that you aren't aware of being there. As you listen, God is searching you because your spirit is the lamp of the Lord. What I'm saying is that God communicates in a deeper way than another person can, even your own family or spouse. That should excite us unless we feel we're hiding something. Then that should convict us. I have been convicted more in prayer than any sermon because being willing to listen is being willing to be corrected in a loving way by God's love. Because of this, there is frailty, even a nakedness like Adam and Eve in the garden. This makes us feel insecure as darkness is exposed to light. Sometimes we are changed through the simple act of being honest to God. You can listen and hear God's voice, even if you think you can't. You have at least heard the voice of God once before. Otherwise, how did you become a believer to begin with? This same voice speaks if we are willing to listen with an attitude of obedience. There is simply no real prayer taking place when we don't listen. Being aware of what God is saying can change the whole focus of your prayer. One time I was asking for direction about which college to attend, and I laid out all the brochures on a bed in front of me because I needed to make a decision in the next few days and decided to not come out of the room till I had a word. Of course, we cannot force God to give us an answer on our time schedule, but I strongly desired to receive direction. As I was praying, I felt led to stop speaking and just listen. Then I sensed an inner voice say, "Stop focusing on your need and pray for the needs of others." I began to do this, and I prayed until I could not think of another need to pray for. After another time of silence, I heard clearly in my mind, "Go to this college." I thought I would be in that room for hours, and to my surprise, it was only 45 minutes at the most. But I entered in humility, ready to receive and follow the leading of the Spirit in prayer, and God spoke in a way that changed my direction in life. Now, let's let the Bible speak directly to us. I rise before dawn and cry for help. I wait for your words. I wait for the Lord, my soul does wait, and in his word do I hope. Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and let your heart take courage. Yes, wait for the Lord. My soul, wait in silence for God only, for my hope is from him. After he had sent the crowds away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. And when it was evening, he was there alone. It was at this time that he went off to the mountain to pray, and he spent the whole night in prayer to God. But Jesus himself would often slip away to the wilderness and pray. Let us wait to listen and listen to obey